Hi there and welcome back to the studio. It is an absolute pleasure to have your company here once again for the first exclusive Patreon video of 2022. Happy New Year to you. I hope you're doing awesome wherever you are in the world. I cannot believe it's 2022 already. Can you? Where is my flying car? Right? Right? What have we got to show for it? Anyway, look, we'll certainly have a lot of painting stuff to talk about, and hopefully this year we can carry our passion for art even further. We have got so much to catch up on. Now, I really want to focus here in January, February, and March, the first quarter of 2022, really drilling down into some stuff, all to do with oil painting and just really helping us get engaged and inspired in the process. So I've got some exclusive content heading your way, not just critique videos here, but a couple of extra Q&A videos where we're going to drill down into a bit more of that businessy stuff, as well as some exclusive time lapses. So if I forget to mention it, let me mention it right now. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for your support. I could not do this without you, and I really appreciate you being here. Now, a huge thank you to everybody for your kind messages, comments, and emails. There's now quite a few of you, which I'm just blown away and just feel so blessed to have your support. But it can be a bit difficult, as you can imagine, keeping on top of that correspondence and just getting back to everybody. So if you're waiting to get a reply from me, sorry if I've kept you waiting. There's a lot of you, and just thank you so much for the outpouring of love and support, especially around the birth of our son, Hugo. He's now 3 months old. I just cannot believe it. Where did the time go? It has gone so fast. And the little guy is doing great. He's, alert, he's awake, he's looking around, he's interacting now, he's giggling, he's laughing, he's a crack up, and he certainly is adorable. So thank you to everybody as well for the cards, the letters, as well as the gifts. There's a few of you who have sent some really thoughtful gifts, and I really appreciate that. Rachel does too. This week, we've got Mattia's painting. Mattia has painted a beautiful painting here of horses in the dusk light in front of a beautiful mountain. I love this landscape. We're going to drill down into this one. We've got a great painting here by Bryan, exquisitely well painted. This is just a stunning painting, and there's a lot here to talk about, and there's so many directions we can go with this painting. And then we've got a painting by Scott, a beautiful seascape, and I've actually been promising Scott a critique for some time now, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Lots to talk about there also. Now, if you're new here, if you've never seen a critique video before, these videos can tend to be quite long. There's a lot that we have to talk about. Now, I'm taking these paintings, and I am loading them up into Photoshop, and I'm drawing directly over the top using this, my Wacom tablet and a stylus, and I'm drawing directly over the top of the painting and showing you some of the things that I would do and some of the changes that I would make if it was me addressing some of these technical things that come up as we're painting in our studios. Now, from the outset, this is not to say that I'm right or this is the right way of going about it. This is just my personal point of view when it comes to these paintings. But there's a framework that I like to follow. Now, if you've seen these before, you'll know this. But if you're new here, welcome. What I like to do is go through a questioning process. You might have even heard me talk about this on YouTube. And that questioning process allows me to see things objectively. You see, sometimes when we're stuck in the process while we're painting, we can tend to get down on ourselves and take things really harsh and really hard. And we tend to get in a creative funk or a block of some sort. And we no longer see things as they are. We tend to get a bit negative. I don't know. Is this true for you? It certainly is for me. I know there's a lot of people out there that are very similar. Maybe you're different. But this process allows me as an artist to step outside of myself, out of my head, and just see things objectively. And then I can start to think of creative solutions to some of the things that are bothering me about the painting. Now, what are those questions? Well, we start off nice and positive. What's working? Now, it can't all be bad. Let's start off with what's positive. What is working in this painting, and really celebrate the things that we like about what we've done. Then second, what's not working? So now that we're feeling good and positive, let's balance it back out again by addressing those things that we're having some concerns with, some challenges there, and we hit those head on. And then finally, what if? And this is our opportunity to come up with some creative solutions. And this is my favorite question, because we can really take that painting from where it is to where it could be. And there's virtually no limit to that what if question. And so that's pretty exciting. I love that part of the process. And that's what we're going to be doing for every single one of these paintings. And yeah, throughout the process, we're going to be talking about some technical things also. I'm going to share with you some of my painting heroes and also share with you a resource that you might be missing out on, something that could help your paintings here in the future, something to do with painting heroes. We'll talk about that in this video as well. And stick around to the end because I'm going to be going through some mentions from the Tish Zone. There's a lot of beautiful work on there. It's just fantastic to see the community that's growing around this Patreon page. And look, I got to thank you so much for taking part in that. If you're new, you might not have heard about it. What is the Tish Zone? The Tish Zone is a private Facebook page that is associated with this Patreon, my Patreon here. But the Tish Zone is becoming its own thing, and it's just got wheels and it's just off and running, and it's fantastic. Even though it's only available to you exclusively through Patreon, the Tish Zone is just kind of taking on a life of its own. It's awesome. So the only way you can get on there is by being a patron here on Patreon and clicking that link down below. I'm going to post it here in the Patreon video, and also if you're watching this through YouTube, you'll see that link down below as well. So the Tish Zone, what you have to do to sign up for that is two things. One, give me your Patreon name or your email, the username or the email associated with your Patreon account, and then agree to those group rules. I have to go through and physically, verify, look up each and every person that applies to be part of that Patreon page. So if I don't have your name, I can't verify you, and I hit that decline button. All right, it's nothing personal. It just takes a long time to verify people. So if I got a little system there. So if you give me that name or that email, I just highlight that, paste it into Patreon, look it up, you're good to go. Okay, so if you can do that, save me some time there. That'd be awesome. Really appreciate that. But if you're not part of that Facebook page, you might be missing out. So check it out. Now, I know there's some people out there that aren't on Facebook for various reasons. Totally get it. Totally understand. Look, you'll always have access to this exclusive content through the Patreon page. It's just a little something extra that we've thrown in and that you're now running and taking part in. And it's awesome. It's fantastic. So yeah, huge shout out and thank you to everybody for taking part in that Facebook page. And I'm going to mention some of those paintings that really caught my eye at the end of this video. So stick around. So without further ado, let's just jump straight into this video. Here is critique number 8. And let's kick things off with Mattia.
In a world where painting is everything, one man had a vision to help artists improve their work. Armed with nothing but a Wacom tablet and an inflated ego, rated best artist of all time by one or two people. He once sold a painting to someone famous. He thinks too much of himself. Now, suffer through one non-stop block of solid talk. It's Andrew Tischler.
Welcome to the studio. Nice of you to drop in. Do you even tish, bro? All right, let's have a chat about what's working about this painting. There's so many things that are working here that I just love. Let's kick things off with the composition. And I think Mattia here has got a really clever use of vectors and just the general arrangement and balance within this composition. It's pretty good. I can see where he's going with this. First of all, we've got this really nice precipice, this very prominent, dominant kind of mountain area there. Look how it's offset and balanced with probably what I'd consider the primary focus. I'm guessing that's going to be the primary focus. It certainly draws my attention more than anything else, but it's kind of offset on a bit of a diagonal. And he's engaged this space with this use of a diagonal here. So we've got this kind of channeling effect in a way that is driving attention up this way. Am I alone there? You guys see that too? I just feel that. So I think the arrangement is pretty good here. The other thing I like about this, and the other thing that's working, is the use of color. The color is fantastic. we've got this strong kind of orangey, peachy, almost coral color here that is just zinging off these beautiful shadows. And the use of complementary opposites here is key. It's really nice. It's kind of like a very warm, yellowy, orangey pink. It's kind of sitting in that color space. There's a range there as well. And then the complementary opposite has been engaged here in the shadow, being that bluey violet. So the two really, even though it's a soft, it's a very nice contrast there with the color. But also they're both slightly towards a warmer hue. I think it works. And it speaks to that heat late in the day, just as things are starting to fade in terms of light, but it's still got that nice warmth coming back out of there. I think that works. Then look what he's done here with the use of color and contrast and tone. Is that here our value gets a little bit deeper here with the horse, right? Those tones get much darker. And then of course the introduction of green here helps this foreground come further forward. Now, what else is working? I think, looking at the way Mattia has been progressing with his horses, there's been a lot of horses that have been uploaded to the Tish Zone. I'd say that the anatomy here is doing pretty good. I don't have much to say. Maybe a couple of little points on horse anatomy. Not that I'm any expert by any means, but I really do like that horse and how that's working. And I also do like this one too. There's something happening there. I won't get into it yet, but there was something happening there with the angle at which we're viewing that horse in particular. We could probably have a chat about that. Lots working though. Lots working. One more thing that's working. I do like the technique, I must say. There's some nice painterly brush strokes up in here where the light that it's been photographed in, we're getting an indication about the direction of the brush strokes. This one kind of downstroke in that direction, downstroke. We got a little diagonal stroke here. You get some sort of sense of how the image was put together. And skies are a great zone to do that, to have some sort of clue that indicates technique. I love that. I love seeing that in Hans Heissen's work, Arthur Streeton's work, and particularly Streeton. Very chunky brushwork. Look up that name, Arthur Streeton. Streeton. Now, the structure of that is fantastic. It starts getting a little bit chibbly down in here in some areas, but not bad. But overall, the brushwork is pretty good. So, Mattia, well done, mate. Lots working here. Now, again, this is not my chance to be mean to Mattia or give him a hard time, but this is just kind of what I would do if it were me. Now, you probably have some different ideas of how you would approach this painting if you were coming to do a critique. But remember, this is just my point of view and opinion. But again, through this process, just trying to see things objectively. Now, one thing before we get into what's not working, if you're new here, you might be wondering, okay, look, how can we pass comment at all? It's Mattia's personal expression. How could that possibly be wrong? And that's it. That would be a good question. I think generally that there is a set of patterns, a set of visual phenomenon that the vast majority of people gravitate towards and all agree universally that is beautiful and visually pleasing. I think there's an aesthetic that traditional art tries to aim for that is inherently human. When we look at something beautiful, we all kind of go, wow, there's something about it that's just magnificent, beautiful, sublime, gorgeous. I mean, look, sunsets, looking at nature, we respond to these things. We're responding to visual harmony, we're responding to color, we're responding to arrangement, we're responding to all these sorts of things that I think are inherently just part of our psychology. It's almost part of our makeup, right? So when I'm giving a critique, I'm trying to form a framework that's based on those things that seem to be underlying in our subconscious mind, right? Now, I'm no psychologist, but this just seems to be something that I'm finding generally. And the way I get an indication about those general patterns of visual things is by looking at, first and foremost, nature and creation, God's mighty creation. he's the master artist as far as I'm concerned. But then you look at old masters from the past who painted some amazing paintings, and why do we call them old masters? They all have something in common. And when it comes to traditional art, I'm speaking mainly, there is a series of things that are done repeatedly. Even though each artist has their own individual expression, there are a series of things that are done, from arrangement to a use of color to a use of tone to using composition to tell a story, to lead the viewer in. So there's a set of patterns here, and this is what I'm trying to apply to my own work and what I'm doing when I'm critiquing your work. Now, again, this is not to say I've got it right, but this is just my point of view, and I'd love to hear what you think as I'm going through these critiques, some of the things that you would do to these paintings in those comments down below. Hit me up on the Patreon page, just comment down below this video, or on YouTube if you're watching there, you can post a comment there. But actually, no, new rule. I tell you what, if you're going to comment on Patreon, because that's more the community aspect, right? Can we do that? Can we say that? Comment on Patreon. Great. New rule. All right. Let's just talk specifically about composition for a second. I'm going to have a video coming out very soon. I found something really cool sitting in the drawer from a while ago. This is probably going back nearly 15, 16 years, right when I was first starting out, and I started to do a bit of a study into composition, and my father actually helped me devise some ideas of what made a good composition. And so we started to break it down in terms of philosophy, and this is what he was teaching me, and I've kind of molded it, adapted it, and fit it to my own process. But I found all of my old notes that I was following when I first started out, and I'm going to share that with you in a video coming up this January, actually, and I'll use that philosophy to critique my own work with some of the studies that I'm doing and share with you that. So you'll get an idea of that sort of structure or how I go about it from watching these videos, but that's going to be a lot of fun, so stay tuned for that one. Okay, anyway, I'm rambling. Let's get on with what's not working here in Mattia's painting, and there's a few things that I do. When it comes to composing, what I try to do is create some sort of asymmetrical balance, or create some variation and differentiation in terms of what's taking up real estate within the composition. Our composition here has been split into three major zones. We've got the sky here, which is stopped by this mountain here, right? We've got our sky. Let's go up here. So we got zone 1. We've got zone 2 right here, which is our mountains, right? I'm going to just include the horses. We're not going to worry about the horses for now. And then we've got so that's zone 2. And now we've got zone 3, which is, of course, our foreground slope with our bush and grasses and all that sort of stuff. So that's number 3. These three areas of the composition seem to be taking up an equal amount of real estate. They all seem to be pretty equal in terms of the area that they're occupying here. I would want to do something there and maybe change that up a little bit, but I'm just identifying it right now as something that's not quite working for me. Or let's put it, it's not that it's not working, it's just that an opportunity might be missed here, okay? I would want to take one of those and make it really dominant. Now, I know you might be thinking, yeah, but Andrew too is taking up slightly more area. But I'm like, well, you know, it could be maybe taking up a bit more or maybe a bit less, maybe. I'm not sure. Maybe, do we need that much mountain? I don't know. So we'll get to that in the what if. We'll change this up a little bit. But that would be point number 1 for me. Now, point number 2. So point number 1, the real estate. I want to address that. Point number 2. This area here, I think our sky, whilst I do like the structure and the way Mattia has gone about painting this, I'd like to see something more that uses that space in the composition that actually directs the viewer back down in. Now, maybe I go over the top personally with some of my paintings and I just put too much in the sky. And I do have the tendency to put too much into a painting. But I'd like to see some way to use clouds and atmosphere as a way to drive attention down into what should be a major focal point, which is this mountain or the horses, right? That is something that I think could really, really work. And then we're actually using that part of the sky rather than just have it be just empty and void. Now, again, that's not to say that we don't need to have a little bit of rest within our painting. Sometimes restful areas or little areas that don't have much going on can provide a nice space and create a bit of a flow within the painting. But I think just having the sky void, totally, without much going on besides just an abstract series of brush marks, I think we need a little bit more. That'd be something that I'd identify as kind of not really working for me. Okay, let's talk about these horses. Oh, no, actually, no, before we do, right? Let's talk about this mountain specifically. This is a great mountain. It's beautiful, and I could feel the structure in the mountain. But this is where following our reference a little bit too closely might trip us up a bit. Because check out what's happening here. We've got all of these areas here within the mountain that are catching that sun. And it's forming a bunch of shapes here that are very equal and almost set up this distracting visual pattern over this this painting. And is almost, it's like it's inspired a technique here that Mattia's employed here, a technique that has resulted in a very chibbly broken surface. And it feels to me like it is totally taking away from Mr. Ed here and Mrs. Ed. All right. So these two horses here, they're almost subordinating to that mountain when I feel that they should be heavier in the composition. But there's a competition and a tension between the mountain and those horses. And I think it might come down to the repetitious shapes and the technique there in that mountain that is just drawing attention away from where the attention should be going and almost breaking the flow within the painting. So I'd want to address that if it were me. Again, something that's not quite working. Is it wrong? No, it's not that it's wrong at all, but it's just not quite there for me. Okay, while we're being mean, let's go ahead and keep going. The background appears to be conscious of the horses. What do I mean? Well, have a look at the highlight patches in the mountain. There is no highlight patch that dare come close to a horse. Nothing is going to pass behind that horse. So what it looks like is that the horse has got this magical buffer all the way around it where that background is conscious of the subject. Nature doesn't do this. We do this. See, we will, when we're going off script in particular, and I think that's something that Mattia would have done here. I'm assuming, I haven't seen his reference, but I'm assuming based on this composition that this photograph or this scenario came about from Mattia's imagination from a series of references. So what I think we're seeing here, and again, don't take this wrong, I do this all the time. Subconsciously, we put in order and pattern where nature doesn't do that. Nature just appears, of course there's order in nature, I'm not saying that, but nature does things in a very random way, as if a tree that you're looking at is not conscious of the mountain, the tree just is in front of the mountain. I say that because I'm looking at a tree in front of a mountain just out the window there. Pretty cool. So I can see that what I'm looking at in nature is not actually conscious of what else is around it. It's just there. But we do that, and here we've got a background that is conscious of the subject. Do you see that too? I see that. So while we're talking about it here, I think that the way these horses actually interact with the foreground, we might start having a bit of an issue here. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, again, when we're talking about the amount of real estate that these horses take up, or the mountain takes up, the sky takes up, and the foreground takes up, the horses, I think, could be a bridge or a link between elements, and we could use that in a bit more of a clever way. But right now, this line just comes down and chops those horses' legs off. Now, to me, this indicates that they're either on the ridge, embedded in the vegetation, or they're just beyond the ridge, that line comes out and cuts it off. But one thing that's not working for me is that an opportunity has been missed here in using those horses to just engage and drive the depth a little bit more. So I'd want to see something done with those in particular. And then we've got something else. I call this I call this an aberration, right? Just a bit of an anomaly, something that is a visual distraction. The handling of these bushes here, you know, if we're in the southwest of the US, I guess this would be sagebrush or something to that effect. I'm assuming these are bushes, but the handling of these, they're very equidistant, equally spaced, equally sized. They're forming this pattern again, and by having that repetition and pattern, it draws attention away from the intended subject matter. And let's just say, I'm going to assume here that the primary focal point for this painting is this horse. Secondary focal point, this horse. Third focal point is this horse. We need to identify what is the painting about. So let's start talking about what if. I think I've been plenty mean to Mattia here. Let's talk about what if. Now, the idea here is to open up our minds to the possibilities and really create something that is just visually pleasing, harmonious, and just easy on the eyes. You want a composition where the viewer doesn't consciously know exactly what they're looking at. They just feel easy when they look at it. It's just like, oh, wow. It's almost like breaking down the illusion that it's a painting. You want to just give them a moment or a snapshot in time where they can feel transported into the scene. But anytime, for lack of a better word, I don't think it's fair to call it a mistake, but for lack of a better word, anytime a mistake is made, whether it's an aberration or something clumsy or clunky with the arrangement overall, you immediately take that viewer out of the state that you're trying to put them into, and they're aware now that they're looking at a painting. So let's get our minds shifted from having people look at paintings to giving the viewer an experience, right? Tough to do. For me, the old masters do that. If I look at the painting called October by Jules Bastien Lepage, for instance, I have an experience. I look at that and the figure, the gathering of potatoes, and it's just stunning, absolutely stunning. And I think about that moment in time. You can feel the fabric. I mean, it's exceptionally well painted, but you're not really aware that at a certain point, it's almost like that veil is dropped where you're looking at a painting, but you're in the field with them. Very clever use of all kinds of different things going on. So interesting painting, that one. Jules Bastien Lepage. I believe it's called October. Another title that it's known as is the Potato Gatherers. Anyway, just an idea. So here, let's play What If, and this is my favorite game. And we'll go back to the start. I'll see if I can remember the more or less the order that we were talking about what's not working. And let's talk about the real estate. So we had area 1, 2, and 3. Now, what if we changed this up and changed the amount of space that the mountain, sky, and foreground was taking up? What do we want to be dominant? What could we do here? Well, I think that this is a really, really nice line. I do like this diagonal. I think we keep that. I reckon what we could do is two things. I think reduce the size of that mountain, create a new line. Bear with me here. I would drop it to almost that line. I would take the horse and I would make him probably 1.5 times the size that he is. I would do something with this guy here. But what would that do is it would give us more sky. Oh, come on. Spinny wheel of death. Spinny wheel of spinny death. Oh, no. Okay, sorry. Here we go. I'd reduce the size or I'd increase the size of the sky and do something with the sky to drive attention down in. Now, can we come up with a clever way so that we break that mountain before it enters the horse, but we don't make the viewer consciously aware that we've got this magical buffer around that horse and that horse. Could that work? Now, what if we took some of these brushes, this brush in the foreground, and we started to clump them together and move them and make the arrangement a little bit more random, and we drive the viewer into the scene by creating depth by taking some of this brush here, the vegetation, and making it bigger, so we're almost looking past it or through it, and open this up so it drives the viewer into the scene. Could that work? I think so. Now, right here with this horse, it almost appears as if we're looking down on the back of that horse. Do you see that? Here, let me get the eraser out and let's get a good look at that horse, all right? All right. So check this out. Does it appear to you? It does to me. That's a bit big. That we're looking down on that horse's back, but it feels like we're looking up at the horse's slope. So he must be standing on some sort of magical platform there to kick the angle down. So we're looking up. I think we ought to be looking at the horse's belly, not the horse's back, at the angle that we're viewing it from. Unless we pick up that horse and we move that horse forward onto the downward slope, then we would be looking at its back, but it would have to come forward. And if it came forward, could we not increase the sense of depth by doing something with the arrangement of the animals themselves? That could be interesting too. So there's a lot of what if here to play with. The last thing that I'll do is, what if we did something with the tones, the colors, and the arrangement here in the foreground? What if we did something with that to, again, drive that depth even further? Because whilst I like that clever use of tone and color here within this composition, one of the things that I want to do is just make sure that we really increase it a little bit to just drive it even further. Because again, we're dealing with a two-dimensional space, the picture plane. What I always try to do is just punch a hole through that, just really push that background all the way into the distance, bring that foreground all the way forward. How do we do that? The only way we can do that is through our drawing, our use of line, our use of tone, and our use of color. So let's get really clever about that. But when I say clever, it comes down to just an adherence to the fundamentals. And those can be pretty simple indeed. But we have to think about how we're going to do that here in this scenario to just kick it up a notch. Anyway, I love this painting. And I love the idea, and I love the potential here. And again, Mattia, thank you for the opportunity to critique this painting. Let's get stuck into it by working in that sky. Here we go. Okay, just so we don't lose this beautiful work here, what I'm going to do is just trim this out as a shape, roughly. Boop, not like that, we don't. And then we'll get our horses on a new layer. All right, kinda. There we go. All right, Command C, Command V. Very good. And now that's on an independent layer. I'll go ahead and hide that layer for now. And we'll come and start working on that layer before we lose the image altogether. I'll copy that, Command O, Command C, Command V, and we'll put that right up the top. There we go. Okay, turn that layer off. Sweet. Okay, now we're going to start working with the sky. So let's go ahead and get our brush out. Yep. And start playing with these colors that Mattia already has. And what I'm thinking about doing is just changing the shape of that mountain somewhat. But before we lose the mountain, how about we take that mountain, do the same thing as we did with the horses, copy and paste that onto a new layer, and just work independently with that mountain. Maybe warp it and shift it. This is a cool thing about doing something digitally, is that we can do it relatively quickly. Now, some people out there are going to be a lot more quick than me, like Lorenzo or Antonio. Those guys, they know their digital art. But me, I get by. It's relatively quick when I compare it to like drawing with a pencil or, you know, doing a little oil painting color study. This is a far quicker way of doing it. Maybe obscure these mountains somewhat with a little bit of that sky. Let's bring it in front of the mountain. There we go. And then take that sky or mountain and move it down slightly. First, before we do anything, let's move that. Let's pick that up, shift it downwards. Remember I said I wanted to reduce the size of it somewhat? And I'm going to shift it over just a little. Will I shift it over? No, we'll keep it there. Snap to the center. Okay, there we go. Now, it might look a bit weird at first, but all I've done is just picked up the mountain, copied it onto a new layer, shifted it downwards, and what we'll do is we'll pick up some of that mountain color and just go ahead and just paint out that horse right now. So theoretically, if I turn that layer back on, which should be in front of those guys, that will appear on the new layer. Yeah? Capiche? Good, we got it. All right, we're moving. So that mountain will kind of take on that shape. All right, we'll come back to that in a second. We'll move into the sky, which we've got happening here. Bring it behind that, perfect. Okay, good. It takes me a little while to get organized, but once I get my head around it, it's all about layers, right? So we'll go ahead and adjust some of these tones and colors behind the mountain. And now we've effectively just dropped it down. Now, what I want to do is I want to start to get a bit of an effect where we have the attention kind of coming from this angle and just sweeping down into the composition, picking up our major focal point, which is going to be the horse down here, right? And then flowing back through the composition in a very cyclic fashion. You would have heard me talk about vectors before. Let's use them in a clever way here. I do really like some of these purples and colors that Mattia has up in the sky here. So we'll retain a bit of that brushwork, but maybe just lighten the tone in some of these areas. See if we can get something painterly happening. I do like a bit of that brushwork, but just open it up just a little bit. Although I do like this lighter gray blue coming through too. So if we pick up that color, start to darken it, almost as if a shadow has started to move in from a cloud descending into the scene. That could be quite cool. All right, now for a bit of a highlight, I almost see this as a cloud kind of curling around, and then we could have a little bit of a highlight of a cloud here that's just starting to emerge from behind that curve. And now maybe we could increase the interest and the contrast within that sky by having the face of it just being sunlit there. That could be quite cool. Maybe introduce a little bit of that warmth coming through. It could be a little bit distracting having such a distinct line getting dangerously close to the corner there. Do something with it, pick it up a little bit. So I'll start to play with the sky here, just playing with lines and shapes, tones and colors. I might even pull up a little bit of reference here and have a look at having one cloud kind of hanging over the viewer here, like we've got like the shelf or the underside of that cloud, dark and heavy, and use that as a line or a shape to direct the viewer towards the mountain and curl back around. I don't know, I'm thinking about it. I'm undecided there, but there's something cool going on here. So I'll play with that more and just see if I can tease out the idea. I don't quite know the direction I want to go, but I know it's something a little bit different. So let's just have a paint and have a play with that. Enjoy some nice chilled beats together and see if we can do something cool with this sky. All right, here we go. All right, please excuse the lack of clothing. It is absolutely boiling today. And all the wardrobe changes as well. You might be going, hey, weren't you wearing a different t-shirt before? I actually filmed these over a series of days, and I try to get time in here and get it filmed when I can. Is that fan annoying? It is sweltering up here, man. That's probably really annoying. Let me turn it off for the audio. Hang on. Oh, she's a hot one. Okay, look, we've got something really cool happening here with Mattia's painting. Sorry, bro. Went to town. Hope you don't mind. Now, what I've done is I've actually put these horses on some different layers. So I'll turn these 2 layers off, right? And I'll show you what I've done. Let's go ahead and take these now. This is why I love Photoshop as a compositional tool, right? You can just get in here and you can just go... Right, ready, snip. Ah, look at that. But don't worry, they're still here on another layer. So now that we've done that, I can actually start to pick these things up and move them all around, and maybe then we would find a solution to some of these compositional things. Now, I was thinking before that this horse here might actually need to be bigger in the scene. So you can, the sky's the limit. All right, I know that's a bit extreme, but just to show you. What if... No. No, but seriously, I think maybe a little bit bigger could help. And maybe even bringing it further forward. I do like the idea of bringing this towards the viewer so it wasn't right on the ridgeline. Had its hooves down in the scene, but that actually works quite well, I think. So how about there? Let's play with that other one. Let's see what we can do with this. Where's the movie tool? Okay, there we go. I think it could be down here somewhere. What if we got rid of it? There's a thing that comes up in a painting, like, you know, your narrative, the story. If this is a commission and your client, for instance, even wants 2 horses in the scene, then you probably have to put both of them in. But let's just say this was something that Mattia was just making up, and here, like, as me, the artist, taking over here, let's just say, okay, completely imagine, do we need 2 horses in there? If it's not necessary to the brief, do we need to? There's something kind of nice and easy on the eye about this scenario now. I like it. I like it. Yeah, I think we're going to delete that horse. So now, with the landscape here, could we do something more with the topography here? Can we change up the topography a little bit? What do I mean by that? Well, what if we made it a little more extreme? Open up a bit more of an angle there. That could be interesting. Cool. And how about transform? Let's go scale. All I'm trying to do is create a more interesting line. I don't know. I don't know that these things are necessarily improvements either, you know. But it feels all right. I think less land. There we go. That feels good. That feels good. Let's go back to this. Let's revisit this. Let's see. Okay. See what happens as I start to raise this horse up. See how he starts to conflict. That it starts to get a bit funky and awkward there with the line of the mountains. And incidentally, this is what I'm struggling with that giant horse painting that I'm working on currently, is the way the horse actually relates to the background. It just seems too composed, too obvious. And I'm struggling with some of the lines back there. So I'm thinking about how I'm going to change that up. But a similar thing is happening right here in this painting. By the way, apologies for the background noise. There's all sorts. We got family staying with us. I've got somebody helping me out, working out in the garden. And there's going to be stuff going on in the background, okay? So I appreciate that, your patience with me there. It's not going to be perfect audio. But we'll try and make this painting perfect. I like that. I don't like the horse coming to the center, but I kind of am liking, I'm feeling this area. Now, I was fussing at Mattia for having a buffer around the back of the horse. So I might drop that highlight there in the background. I think he needs to be about there. There. I don't know, man. I like it. I think it works. Okay, let's save that and let's get to work. So the next part that I'm going to be working on, we'll do a bit of a time lapse here. I'm going to start working with this horse. We're going to change up a little bit about the color, maybe something to do with the musculature, not sure. Maybe something to do with position, maybe. And then we will work some more in that foreground and with the bush and all of that sort of thing. So let's play with that, see what we can come up with. I'm really enjoying this one, though. I hope you are too. Okay, here we go. Let's get back into it. All right, let's cast our minds back to where this all started out. Mattia has done a phenomenal job here with this painting. I love so much about this, bro. This is really great. Look, great composition. I like the use of the pictorial space. I like your use of vectors. What am I talking about? Well, just go back to where we first started out. Check this out. What I really like is a bit of a sense of flow here. Right there, look at that lean. And look at that raise up in the topography, leading the eye to the intended focus. Love it. I also really enjoy what you had happening here with the color, Mattia. Very good. Very good use of color, particularly the way that orange reacted with the blue. Very, very cool. There are so many things that I like about this, but there are just a few things that I wanted to change. Of course, you know, that repetitious bush type pattern that shows up over and over again. Some of the nature of the working right here in the background. And that's what I tried to address in this critique. And again, we just took Mattia's idea, ran with it, and here's what we came up with. So we went from that to that. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. Am I right? Probably not. But let me just talk to you about some of the things that, if I had more time to work on this, some of the things that I would probably play with. Probably the working of the foreground. What I was trying to do was create some openness here with the foreground, but I just want to highlight something. What I was giving Mattia a hard time about, right? This is so hard. It's so hard for me too. What I was giving him a hard time about, there I've gone and done it too. Even though I was trying to have some bushes here and some character in the foreground, there's very little difference between something like that and that and that and that and that. I probably really annoyed you now just by pointing those out. You're like, I don't like it, Andrew. What'd you do? Well, I know. See, I put my foot in it too. All right. So if I had more time to work on this, I'd probably address some of those issues and actually change the scale of some of these foreground bushes. And again, lower ourselves as viewers down into that a little bit more. I don't know what kind of bushes these are. I have no idea, but I was playing with something there. Thought it was kind of cool. Now, what I also really like is this background mountain separation. This is an idea that I'm borrowing from Chinese watercolor, right? They'll have flat plains of depth separated by atmosphere and rising mist and cloud, and I love that. And I've seen that so many times being in the mountains, in all kinds of different landscapes, even when you don't think it should be there, like even in a kind of an arid type landscape. Now, granted, this was coastal, but you would still find that rising mist, that rising atmosphere. I like it, especially when you got heavier weather around. Maybe it's just rained, it's clearing. There's something nice about this. So this, I think, was helping provide a solution to getting separation between our horse and our background. That's something I really wanted to focus on. I would work more with the sky. This is a little bit too flat for my liking, just being critical of myself here. So yeah, I do stuff too. But I do like how this goes down in. It's picked up again, a similar type slope from that. We've got some mini slopes that do kind of lead the eye in towards our intended focus. And then of course here as well. Now again, doing away with the second horse causes us to focus on this as the primary focus, but we might decide to put that other horse back in here. It's not that it's wrong having two. Potentially we could even have more, but this just shows how we can really get some weight right there at that focal point, the horse right there. Now, the other thing that I've done here is I've actually changed the color significantly, and I've dropped the tone of this horse. You'll notice here it became much darker than what we had here in comparison to that background. So the background's been lightened and the foreground's been darkened, again, driving that depth just a bit more. The only thing that I don't quite like about this, that I would like to do again, with this rendition, is I would probably drop this line even further. I would open up a secondary tier of depth, probably not as flat as that, but something there, just a slope, and have it go from 1, 2, 3. So just have a bit more of a step from where it goes to 1 to the next one right there. Just a little bit more step in that journey. Because what can tend to happen is we can get too much of a stark contrast there, and then it can feel flat all over again. Like you've just got like this thing that's either green screen or just cut and paste this thing on top of. It feels too incongruous, is what I'm saying. So I might work on that a little bit. If I had the opportunity to paint this, that would be one of the things that I'd do. But really, all in all, this was so much fun to work on. Mattia, beautiful painting, my friend. Really beautiful work. I really enjoyed critiquing this. I hope you enjoyed this and you got something out of it. And if you did, yeah, hey, let us know in the comment down below on Patreon. Please comment down below on Patreon. Let me know some of the things that you would do and some of the things that really bothered you about my critique of Mattia. Anyway, Mattia, hope you've enjoyed. You've been tished. All right, Bryan, here we go. This is Bryan's painting. Beautiful pastoral scene with some cows, some trees, a field with that late afternoon light cutting across the field. Absolutely love it. There's so much cool stuff going on in this painting. So why don't we go ahead and start with what is working. First and foremost, I think the thing that really works for me in this, a nice big JPEG here to work on, which is great. The thing that really I love about this is how it's painted. I'm a sucker for detail, I gotta say. There's something really cool when somebody puts in the effort to just put in that much detail. It doesn't always work, but I appreciate the effort. I'm sure you do as well. Very well painted. The technique holds up, very nice. What I also really like is that we can get the detail not only out of those highlights, but also out of the shadows. Check out the leaf texture going on here. And this is some small brushwork going on here. I think, what is this, 16 by 20, 12 by 16? It doesn't feel that big. I'm getting some indication about the canvas size here. But that detail, look at that detail in the shadow. Very, very nice. Compositionally, not too bad. I quite like it. I mean, it's a simple idea. It works pretty good. There are a few things, though, that I'd like to address about this. But overall, great painting, solid painting, top marks. Again, what we're talking, these are all good paintings, all right? But now that we've talked about how good this is, let's go ahead and be mean. I didn't even draw on there in the green, all right? Everybody's got to get a little bit of green up in there. Okay, so I like that detail in there. Okay, cool. I like the detail down in here. I like some of these things compositionally as well. Nice, simple, a bit like Mattia's painting. We've got the 1, 2, 3 thing going on. 1 for the sky, 2 for the bank, and 3 for the foreground. Nice, simple composition. So, some things I like about it. I think it's working. Okay, what is not working? Let's talk about that. Okay, compositionally, generally I do like the flow of this, but there's a few things that are happening. So I kind of imagine, and this is what tends to happen when we're painting directly from, can happen directly from observation or from reference material without changing it up slightly, is we're going to put some things in there that don't really work as a picture, but they work as a scene or an environment when you're observing it in real life. Does that make sense? So something about photographing it. You set the parameters with the edges of your photograph. So here, this is the edge. But what tends to happen when we're out there in the field is we're experiencing this thing of what it looks like to the left and to the right. You know, if we had some sort of idea that we could pan around left and right and see the entirety of this landscape, we would start to fill in more gaps in information. And also we would have a place to go visually. But with a fixed frame, a fixed point of view, you don't really get much of a sense of that. And this, I think, is really why, you know, part and parcel why when you get home from a trip or a photographic expedition and you're looking at your photographs and your reference, you're like, man, I remember it being so much more beautiful than what I'm actually seeing in my reference material. And that's certainly the case with me anyway. Maybe you can relate. But there are a few things here that aren't quite working for me. So again, alluded to it a little bit there, but I really want to go someplace within this scene. I feel that this tree line and this line here forms an abrupt wall, and I'm blocked. I cannot get past this. I would like to go through it at some point. I'd like to be able to see past that and beyond. I want a journey. I want a story. I want a sense of narrative. What we have going on here, like with foreground elements like these beautiful cow here and some lovely details, is we've set the scene, we've anchored the composition down here, but I'd love to work out a way to go into the distance, right? So if we had right here, maybe a gap in those trees. Bryan's already got an indication of it right there, but let's just say we just broke through right there, eliminated those, just opened up the scene a little bit. Maybe that would work. I'm already getting into what if, but let's talk about what's not working some more. Okay, a couple more things. Sorry, Bryan. So are we cool? We cool? Hopefully we're cool. All right. When it comes to arrangements of animals, we have to be careful about vectors. What do I mean? Well, whenever you orient the body of an animal in a particular direction, there's something subconscious that happens where we start to look in these directions, right? Now, think about where those cows are facing and where our attention is going within the scene. We can actually direct and set up a sense of flow depending on where those animals are facing. But here, it's just kind of like, imagine if you're okay, everybody's holding on to a basketball and that's our attention right there. But this player wants to pull it this way. This player wants to pull it that way. What we actually want to have is a way for it to be passed from one place to the next, and create a sense of flow. Terrible analogy. Man, I got some bad analogies. They will get better. Probably not. Okay, so what I would want to do is maybe do something, address those cows, address the direction, and maybe play with the scale. Here's something else that's not quite working. These are some really beautifully socially distanced cows here. In terms of two-dimensional picture space, look at the space between that, between that, between that, between that, between that. Similar, very similar differences in space here, with the exception of those two there and those two there. But each one of these lines is pretty similar in length. So they feel quite equally spaced. Similar, not the same, similar. Similar enough that we could probably do something a little bit more interesting. So that's something else that's not quite working. If I didn't say it before, the flatness of this line, I might want to do something with it and how it's echoed in terms of a very stripiness coming through, technical term, yes, coming through the foreground like that. There's something a little bit repetitious, not in a good way here with these lines. I'm being really niggly there. It's probably not a fair criticism, but to me, it just seems a little bit too stripy in that way. I want to say something about color. Color's pretty pretty good. I quite like it, but again, there's something about beautiful blue sky days, and maybe this is just a personal thing, but anytime I see a blue sky, I just want to do something that is like, a little bit more epic, a little bit more dramatic, and maybe it's overkill, maybe it's too much, but that empty space there is kind of bothering me a little bit. I'm going to play with it somewhat, but I'm really splitting hairs here, Brian. I really am. There's so much cool stuff going on here. I really love this painting. I mean that. Beautifully well done. Let's talk about what if. Let's have some fun with this thing and talk about what if. Okay, check this out. Let's go here with some cobalt teal, and let's start talking about some compositional things. First and foremost, let's get in this foreground. I might want to take this cow, beautifully well painted. We're going to get rid of this guy. We're going to shift this cow into this into this area in the composition. Eliminate that guy, move him, her. Now, see here, the direction that they're pointing. If I move this cow this way, that direction will then open up the composition. Then we could start setting up a bit of a flow. The other thing I might want to do is change the scale of this cow, make it a bit bigger, drive the depth a little bit more into the scene. That said, we might pick up all of these cows and just change the arrangement slightly. The other thing as well is, you notice how all of their heads are down? Maybe we could get some variety in there and have one of them with their head lifted up or looking back and acknowledging the viewer. Okay? Now, with the background, by the way, the light here, well, before we get into the background, these shadows here in the foreground, let's go ahead and darken some of these shadows, and maybe instead of having so many stripes coming through, just have a couple coming through, but do something with the perspective. So this will get smaller and smaller and smaller as it goes into the distance. We'll drop the line of that field down, bringing ourselves up, to there with the cows in the field. So now you're a cow as a viewer. You're experiencing what the cow's experiencing. You're looking into the distance. We're going to drop that horizon nice and low, very much like an old master's painting would do. Okay, and then we're going to take these trees. Why don't we take that tree, drop that line down of the trees, open up the sky a little bit, and then open up some space there into the distance. So we can keep that big central tree. That'll be nice. Open up some cloud, but then have a bit of space in the distance where there might be a destination. What could be a really cool destination? Maybe have a building back here or something. Just a little something. Now, we're really going to town with this painting. I mean, we're adding all sorts of stuff that probably wasn't even the intention of the artist. Obviously, it was not the intention of the artist in the first place. What I want to do here is just show you the possibilities and the potential of an image like this, and something that I would do if it were me. Again, what's really important for me, taking that two-dimensional picture plane, ripping it apart, punching a hole in it, creating that three-dimensional space, having something really interesting and unique all the way from the foreground all the way into that distance, just opening up the scene, playing with the depth. Anytime we have a wall like this, we kill that depth. We've got to play with that. So let's make it a little bit more dynamic. Okay, finally. Maybe a storm, maybe a nice big cloud, something that is going to lead the viewer in to the tree. The tree will then come down here to the cow and then back again. We'll see if we can create some sort of rotational cyclic vector. All right. Okay, it's been a warm one up here in the office today, but I think we've got something interesting. What do you think? All right, let's go back to the original and talk about what Bryan has happening in this landscape. And again, just cast your mind back to what we were talking about before with those three questions. What's working? Exceptionally well painted. I mean, who can deny that? This is a very beautiful painting. Now, the technique aside and all the things that are working aside, we identified some issues with it that, if I had the chance to go and do this landscape or something similar for myself, some of the things that I'd be thinking about. So primarily, what's taking up the space within the composition here? That was something that became more of an important factor. Again, like Mattia's painting, notice the equal parts sky, midline or tree line. In Mattia's painting, it was the mountains and the foreground. They're pretty much equal thirds. Could we do something to offset that balance a little bit? And then finally, just working out the position of some of the major elements within the landscape like that. Could we break apart some of those trees? Could we open up the space a little bit? And what do we do about the position of those cows? So came up with some what ifs, and we went from that to that. Now, of course, I could keep going with it, and I'm actually leaving a few of these critiques at a bit of a rougher resolve than I would normally. I hope that's okay. I think the main thing that's important is just working out the concept. So let me explain a little bit about what you're seeing here and what I've done. Well, the sky, you'll notice here, is completely different. Now, I am taking some inspiration for things like the sky, the lighting, the trees, the overall composition from some old masters. Let me pull this up and show you what I'm talking about here. And this is a resource that could actually really help with some of your paintings. Now, let me go to, here we go. Now, right here, Art Renewal Center. It keeps logging me out. Why are you logging me out? I want to stay logged in. artrenewalcenter.org or artrenewal.org. You can see the URL there. There we go, artrenewal.org. If I go to scroll down, this is a fantastic resource for artists. I actually use this all the time for the museum. Search ARC Museum. I've clicked on that. Now, what kind of painting would we want to see? If I was doing a painting of cows in a landscape, I might want to know what masters have been there before me, so I could learn from the old masters, the greats, some of the things they did with their compositions, their lighting, the color, the technique. You can find out all sorts. So down here is a search function. You can search for the artist if you know a particular artist that you want to look up. But down here, I actually use this function and discover some new artists that I haven't heard of before by clicking on artworks. Now, because it's a landscape with cows, just go in here in the title and just type in cows and see what artists have actually done. Now, this isn't a subject search. In fact, does it have a subject field? No, that would be really interesting. Just if it had cows in the title, what would actually come up? So let's hit search and see what comes up for cows. It's just loading. And in alphabetical order, we can start to see all of these beautiful paintings coming up with cows. Now, I had a feeling Julian Dupre was going to come up. Let's open up one of these. I really love Julian Dupre's paintings, but not really quite the right example I'm thinking of for Bryan's painting. But I have referred to Julian Dupre in a past video, but absolutely beautiful. Now, some of them vary in terms of their quality. This doesn't look like a particularly high quality image, but click on it, zoom in, and you can get a decent amount of information out of that. Certainly compositionally, you can see what's happening there in that one. Let's see if we can find another one. There was something that caught my eye here, and I think why did you take me back to that? Have I got to do that search again? Dang it. Okay, bear with me. We'll go ahead and type in artworks, title, cows. I'll open it in a new tab this time. Willem Vester. That's a new one for me. How about you? This is the kind of thing I'm talking about. Now, what I want to draw your attention to is a couple of things here. Check out, let's see if we can zoom in. Oh, there we go. That's probably better for you. A few things. I wasn't actually looking at this sky in particular, but it's quite interesting how similar it is in terms of what it's doing with its vectors leading the viewer down into the composition. Notice this diagonal arc from the upper left into that tree, which really anchors the entire scene. That's where he's placed this cow. But I was looking at Ivan Shishkin painting for the sky and getting some ideas from Shishkin. Have a look here at this landscape. This is where I got that idea to drop the horizon line and put us as viewers on the same level, the same plane as those cows in the landscape. And what that does is it immediately just establishes that context. It drags you in, it draws you into the scene overall rather than looking down on it. Whenever we're looking down, even if it's slight, when we look down, it's a disassociative thing. We disassociate from the subject. Whereas as artists, and certainly what I'm trying to do, is make the viewer feel like they're part of it, associated, not disassociated. Okay, you get it. You get it. So I like that low horizon, but I like the way it's heavy and dominant on one side or the other, and I like how it plays against a foreground element up close and then a background element far away and pulls that scene apart. So a little bit of that going on in this scene. It sends me back. That's terrible, that function. I've got to go back and search for cows all over again. I've had enough of searching for cows. Come on. Fix your dang website. Okay, here we go. Cows. Boom. All right, what's something else that we can talk about that kind of shows that point, what I'm talking about here? Kinda. George Innes, familiar name. You probably know of George Innes. Everyone knows about George Innes. That looks like a little study there. But again, dominant over on one side here, the left-hand side for that tree. Nice open landscape. Subjects, near and far. It's okay. That painting's okay. Sorry, George. I'm not going through that again. Anyway, you get the point. artrenewal.org. Have a look at that website and see if that's going to inspire you. Now let's go back to this and talk about that with that old master type composition in mind here. So I've dropped that horizon nice and low, opening up more potential for that sky to have some force and direction and point down into these trees. And we've got a very definite clump of trees here over here on the right hand side. Opened up a little bit of that vista in the background. Some trees over here on the left just to balance it out a little bit, to channel that viewer's attention into the distance. Right here in the immediate foreground, have a couple of cows. One of them, though, coming here, acknowledging the viewer. Look how that's looking back at us. I just think we need one with its head up, right? And then get some variation. So if we're going to repeat this, yeah, okay, repeat it, but get some variation in there. But notice here the other thing happening. Let's go ahead and mark this in red. Check this out. If I grab my brush tool, let's go on a brand new layer. These cows, notice the backs here, they're pointing in that direction. And then over here, rather than keep sending them off in this direction, what I did is I pointed those cows in this direction. They're kind of looking off that way. So what it does is it creates a flow. But there's something else happening at the same time. So we come down the slope and then there. Notice this. Look at this slope here. So what I've actually done is I've separated the foreground into some multi-tiered planes here and played with the depth. So I created a little bit of an incline there. So it's a way for our attention to roll down the hill here to these herds, get picked up in that tree, up through here, back down through that vertical tree, back again. And you can see you're actually starting to form a cyclic type scenario here and take in more of the picture plane. Bryan, beautiful painting. I mean that. And thank you for the opportunity to critique this. I really enjoyed this. Actually, it's given me some ideas for stuff I want to do. Man, I'm getting some good ideas this week. So, Bryan, we'll get on to the next one, but you've been tished. All right, it's another day here in the studio. Beautiful day out there. It's going to be another hot one. We have got Scott's painting here. Lovely seascape. And I must apologize right off the bat. Scott, I do not have a good quality JPEG of this image, so I apologize. It is a little bit pixelated, but take my word for it. Scott paints some beautiful paintings. You can see here, I mean, very clearly, excellent handle of tones and colors. The technique is just exquisite, beautifully well painted. very photographic. It's just lovely. It's really, really well done. However, the quality of the image here, and again, I apologize. I think maybe I saved like a low quality version. You can see the pixels pretty clearly here. So sorry about that. But there's a lot here to talk about, and a lot here to go over. So actually, Scott has painted some other paintings as well. Now let's go ahead and pull these up. I've just got these here in my little folder here. Let's pull up this one and give you an idea of the quality of Scott's work here. Look at this. Isn't that something? Well, this is a much better quality JPEG. That's quite nice. I could critique this one, but there's something about that image that I think I really like, actually. And this one too. That's a really high quality image. Why is this one so pixelated? I do not know. Still, there's a lot there to talk about. But you can see here from Scott's work, again, beautifully well painted, great handle of the tones and the colors. There is a wonderful style here to the laying down of the paint, really beautiful structured brush marks, great control, lovely stuff, really nice. So here in this painting, let's talk about what's working. Well, first up, color, massive tick. The color is beautiful. I want to draw your attention in particular just to the quality of the tones down here in the foreground and the beautiful control and the gradation as this goes into the distance. Textbook, perfect example of how to create depth with tone and color. I mean, Scott's a pro. This is exquisite. Again, color as well. So that's just speaking specifically about the tone here, but the color now. Look at the saturation here. As we go back into the distance, how some of the warmer notes here and some of the violet that's coming through, how that takes a step down as we go back into the distance. It's enough to just open up the scene and really punch it and just go all the way back there into the great beyond towards the horizon where it's beautiful and diffused back here. And while we're speaking of that diffusion of these marks back here in the horizon, look at this, the sharpness of some of these elements, despite the low quality JPEG, the sharpness here and how it gets quite soft back here, way back there in the distance. Love it, love it, love it, love it. Some really nice moments in here. I like that little bit of glow coming through. I like this breaking wave. I like that, the little bit of breaking wave here. Some of the relationships between the rocks and the water, spot on. Fantastic. So lots of good stuff. Let's talk a bit about what's not working. And again, do I need to keep saying this? Probably not. I'm probably just being a little bit, just going overboard a little bit too much. But you get it. Maybe you're new here. Maybe you're like, oh, Andrew, you're really harsh. Okay. Again, this is not to say Andrew's right, and this is not just to be mean to people. And big man myself over here. This is so we all can learn. I tell you what, I'm learning more than anybody. I've said that in the past in other critique videos. I learn more than anybody by doing this. And it's such an important exercise to start doing this with your own work. And just a little bit of a heads up about what's coming. I'm going to be going through this process on some of my designs, color studies, oil color studies, and running through the compositions on those and show you where I've made mistakes and how you can see it when you sit back, you run through these questions, the mistakes in your own work become so apparent. Again, this is a way for us to get from the subjective, where we're trapped in it, we can't see it, to the objective, where we're looking at it and we're no longer taking it personally. We see it for what it is. So we look at it for what's working, we don't get too down or negative, and then what's not working. Okay, so this is what we really want to focus on here, is the what's not working now, because I think what is not working is holding us back from that potential, the what if. There's a relationship between these three questions. You're probably starting to see that now. So the what's not working, I'm going to guess this was painted from a photograph, and I'm going to make another guess here that this was painted fairly closely adhering to that photograph. The reason why I think that this was more or less just painted directly from the photo, not that that's a bad thing in and of itself, but the reason why is because there are some things here that if you were doing this from imagination, there's some opportunities that have been missed. And this is what's not quite working for me. I'll just identify a couple of things here. Look at this wave here, over here on the left-hand side. Notice the break and how beautiful this is. If we were making this up, would we not actually just move that over into the scene, move it over to the right and incorporate more of the pictorial space and use it as a device? That's not quite working for me. Again, I've said this about trees and about subject matter and other people's work. If it's right on the edge, it's either in or it's out. But if you're on the fence, come on, get off the fence. Are you in or are you out, right? And here with this wave, come on, are you in? Are you out? What's it going to be, buddy? Come on, in or out? Here, if it's on the edge, I generally, and it's something beautiful like that, bring it in, use it. But there's an opportunity there that's been missed. And I, to me, not quite working for me, I'm just going to say. There's also some things in here that I would refer to as blocks. This happened with the tree in Bryan's, that bank of tree in Bryan's painting. But look at this here in Scott's painting as we go all the way across here. All right. There's a line that's formed. And whilst we do have little notches in that line, a little narrow neck there, it still forms a visual block which could halt some of that depth going back into the distance. And here, maybe could halt some of that depth going into the distance as well. Right? Again, is it in or is it out? Look how this form and mass is echoed in terms of size and pretty much shape, either side of those corners. So there's little things that are happening here within the composition. I'm not saying nature doesn't do this, but again, the reason why I suspect this was done more or less directly from a photograph is because this is just looks like a fixed moment in time from a fixed point of view without much shifting or moving around. Okay, I know that sounds harsh. Sorry, Scott. But again, I do love the painting. I think it's beautiful, but I just, there were some things that I would do to this to change it up a little bit. Okay, again, while we're being mean, let's go ahead and be mean a little bit more. Okay. Things that are equidistant, equally sized, and more or less equally spaced. I would do something with these rocks in the foreground. Also, the way that line mimics this line, a little bit distracting. This mass here, check out this major C stack right here. This mass, I'm not getting much of an, I really had to look at this painting before I realized it's not a pyramid. This is actually a C stack beyond. Okay, and what gives me the indication that that's a C stack beyond is that the difference between those shadows and of course the fact that we have a green bank on top of that C stack. What am I talking about? I'll take that. I see the green on top. Right? Those two are separated. They're different masses. There's ocean between those two forms. This one, and 2. There's ocean between those. So I would want to do something with that. I think that's about it. I like it. I like the vantage point. But again, there's something with the viewing platform type perspective in a landscape. We don't associate with the landscape. We're looking down on it, which means that a lot of these things that are so massive, so awe-inspired, so powerful, that raw, rugged energy of the sea, that power of the ocean, just pummeling these rocks, we don't get much of a sense of that when we're looking down on it. But when you're in it and you're looking at it and across it, man, you just feel like you're there with nature, and it's raw and it's powerful and it's coming at you. But here, not much of that sense. Now, does that make the painting wrong, or is that a mistake? No, not necessarily. Again, this is where my personal preference is going to start to come through, and maybe that's a bit wrong, but we shouldn't go in that direction. But again, hey, my critique now. So I want to show you something that we can do with this in terms of perspective. We talked a little bit about this with Bryan's painting. Let's do it with this painting too. Now, before we get into the what if, I want to talk to you about some more painting heroes. Let's go back to artrenewal.org and have a look at some seascape masters. Okay, let's load up that. Again, apologies for the fan. I'm sure that's not doing great for the audio here. Anyway, all right, log back in. It keeps logging me out. So annoying. We're going to do something similar here that we did with Bryan's painting. We're going to go to the museum on artrenewal.org. Let's see what we can find. And this time we're going to go to Artworks, and we're going to do a search on 3 different words. We'll do the first one. Let's try coast. Something coast. See what we come up with. Ah, pretty cool. Let's have a look at Josh Brett. We'll open that in a new one. August Wilhelm Lou. There's an old favorite. Love that. Very ship and boat heavy. Very people heavy. Is there anything that's just a landscape? I do like that. That's quite nice. 1889. Lovely. David James. Paolo Pratella. That's quite nice too. Let's talk about that one. Open link and do tab. Oh, William Trost Richards. You cannot go past a Trost Richards. Let's open that link in a new tab. Harry van der Weyden. I really like that painting right there. That's a lovely piece. But we're looking for something that's a little bit rockier, a little bit more dramatic. Also, I should note that there's a few new artists in here, or like contemporary masters, at least according to Art Renewal, and not me. So it can't be that good. Yeah, get over yourself, Andrew. Please, Art Renewal. Please, can I hang out with you guys? Please. So here's one from 2015. Michelle Jung. Or Jung. Really nice painting there. Love it. Cool. All right. But a few newbies on here. Few modern masters, so to speak. I'm going to go here. Added on March, the Bowes Museum, oil on board, Josephine Bowes. I like that painting. Is that an old master's painting, or is that a new artist? I don't know that name. And William Hart. Okay, that should be enough tabs open. Let's go have a look at these now. Here we go. John Brett, 1831-1902. Very similar type of view to Scott. Beautifully painted, quite lovely here, but we're looking very much down on this scene. So I want to get something where we're looking out and across it, something like this. David James, here we go. I don't know the date of this painting. It did say 1889 or 89. Could be 1989. That could be a recent painting. But see how we're kind of looking out across the ocean, and we're more or less at ocean level, slightly elevated. That's quite nice. Okay, here we go. Paolo Pratella. Again, that sense of context, that being pulled into the landscape. You're there more or less right there with the waves. It's quite nice too. When you get a good one, like I love William Trost Richards. Let's just go and have a look at the gallery. So we'll click on his name. And we'll look at one of my favorite artists is Trost Richards. Beautiful realism from the 19th century. If we have a look at, let's say, this one here, Breakers at Beaver. Let's click on that. Get a big view of that. Hopefully they got a nice, big, large quality JPEG of this one. That is terrible quality. Not all of the images on here are great quality. Hopefully that loads a better quality. No. Is that full res? That's full res. But anyway, hey, you'll see. Obviously, Andrew. Obviously, you're a fan of Trost Richards because we see similar stuff in your seascapes. I mean, I do this all the time. You got the 1-2 punch with your waves. You got that big main wave that you're focusing on in the foreground. That interaction between the rock and the water, and then you've got this thing building, looming in the background. Really love that. Trost Richards, favorite. Love him. So that's something cool. Now, I don't know how to get out of there. Now that I'm here. There we go. Back arrow. But if I hit back again. Oh, no, the search is working on this time. Okay, cool. So Trost Richards is pretty cool. Let's go and have a look at a couple of these others that we were identifying. Josephine Bowes, coastal scene with figures. I really like this. I like this for a number of reasons. Look how we're looking out across the ocean. That horizon's nice and low, but it gives us this sense that we're looking up at these stacks. You get just more of a sense of power within the landscape. And that beautiful asymmetrical balance here in the composition. Look how she's balanced out here. That stack over on the right-hand side, opening up the picture plane over to the left, and then right here with that sailboat, it's like the seesaw effect balancing out the composition, and nearly weight for weight, those two things are quite heavy within the composition. You've got this real heavy stack balanced out with that sailboat. You guys see that? So I quite enjoy this type of composition, and I think maybe Scott's painting could use a little bit of that. Love this painting. Very, very much an old master vibe here. Really, really good. This one here as well. Love that application of the paint there. Very old master. William Hart, 1823, 1894. Don't know about the date of this painting particularly. Connecticut coast. Lovely stuff. We'll go back here and we'll go wave. Wave. Helps if you spell it right. Wave. Waverly Bridge, not that one. Ivazovsky. Sounds familiar. Love that. That's nice. Bracing the Waves. David James, another one there. Peter Knudsen, lovely Frederick Judd Waugh vibe happening there. Montague Dawson, look at that. I mean, I know we're not talking about ships, but look at that ship right there. Beautiful. E. Phillips Fox, I've talked about him in another critique video. Love his work. That's a nice green wave there. Green wave, Manly. Beautiful painting. William Bouguereau. Careful, love. You're going to get a bit wet there. She's not. She's got the right idea. That's how you ride a wave. You get carried through it. Again, some modern masters here. I'm scrolling through and I'm looking for something that has got the vibe that we're looking for. David James, there's another one there. Okay, that's a bit creepy, bro. Oh, wow, dude. All right, I don't condone every painting on here, just for the record. I'm not saying they're all good. I mean, that's just next level. Carlos Schwab. Any relation to Klaus? You're both dark. Ugh. Very dark. Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, now we're getting into it. Here we go. Check this out. I'm surprised Frederick Judd Waugh did not come up in a search, but this guy, one of my favorites, Edgar Poe. Again, talked about him in a past critique video, but look at the way that we access this composition. We're right at water level. The white water has formed this kind of tumultuous energy here in the foreground. We look out across it and we're driven into the landscape, into the depth. And it's just this back and forth pushing, pulling, but we're there with it. In fact, Edgar Poe did a lot of painting of the California coast, and I might guess that could be where this is, maybe? Is it, Scott? Where on the coast is that? Again, beautiful. And who knows? Maybe Edgar Poe was painting this exact area. It really does have that kind of vibe, doesn't it? Really cool. So there's another one for you. So let's take some of that vibe and let's start to play the what if game. Okay, I get it. Don't use that tool. Target layers hidden, whatever. Okay, here we go. Let's play the what if game. We'll get out our cobalt teal here. A bit of a rooster suit brush. Again, I'm using Grut brushes. Whenever I paint digitally, I use Grut. Invented by Nikolai Grut, made by Nikolai Grut. They kind of mimic painting brushes. I talked about this in a recent YouTube video. I'll try and remember to put a link in the description box down below so you can get yourself a little sample of some Grut brushes if you want to try digital painting in Photoshop. Okay, what if? First things first. I'm going to get radical here. I'm going to get radical. Can I get radical? Thank you. I'm going to completely change it up. I love this, but let's say we're using the photograph as a reference material. I really wanted to get down to water level, but there was no access. So I shot this as reference material, and I want to look out across the scene. And I want to look out to the sea and look up at these sea stacks and feel the power of the waves. I would say that we're going to take this whole thing, so this entire horizon line right here, this whole thing, and we're just going to drop it. We're going to drop it down to a new level somewhere along there. What's that going to mean? Now, of course, this totally fundamentally changes the painting. I get that. But again, I just want to play with this as an idea and talk about how this actually changes the relationship from looking down at something to being in it. Okay? So drop that down. What's that going to do? It means we're going to be looking now out to sea. There's going to be more potential here for some like cloud and sky and stuff like that, so we can get some real dramatic sky here. Late afternoon light catching the front of some of these thunder clouds. Again, let's get a bit of weather in there. Now that sea stack that's right here, I would then probably pick it up and move it and actually have it, watch out for the center mark, but I'll probably move it over there. So we're looking up at it. We'll take this jobby right there and we'll move it out there and have a step down effect. And then we'd be looking out to ocean and we'll see the cliffs out there. And then what do we do about this little one in front? Do we need it? Do we need it right now? Yeah, we could have it. Let's put it right there. Let's put it right there and have like maybe a smash, crash, bash right there. And this little wave that we got over here on the left, let's make it about this wave. Actually, it's starting to look very similar to a painting I've actually painted. Whatever. We're going to go with it. Looks like a bit of fun. And then maybe have some interest here in the foreground with some rocks and shelves with the sea just dragging and sucking, just going off those rocks and pulling back, forming that wave, crashing again. Oh, how cool could this be? Can you tell what's going on? If you're just watching me for the first time, this is your first critique video, you'd be looking at a little sketch like this, going, Andrew, wow, put the pipe down, Andrew. Stop smoking that stuff. Look, I can see it, even if you can't. Okay, chill out. I can see it. I know what I'm doing. I'm a professional. All right, let's take this seriously, Andrew. Okay, head in the game. Let's go ahead and start playing with this. I'm going to drop this whole thing down. I'm going to start changing it fundamentally. Let's begin with that sky, and let's see where we can go with this painting. Here we go. All right, all right, all right. This was a lot of fun. This was a lot of fun. Let's go back to the beginning. Scott, brother, love this painting. Thank you for allowing me to critique this, Scott. I hope you're okay with what I did with this. Oh man, I went to town. So look, lots of stuff going on here and lots of stuff to love. Again, we discussed this at length, the what was working, what's not working, what if, and again, just my personal point of view. And I came up with some changes. Essentially, what I like to do with my work is to provide a scene that the viewer can get lost in. And one of the ways I try to do that is use perspective to bring the viewer down to the level where they're in amongst the landscape. So often that's standing on the ground level. If you're standing on the edge of something, so here in this instance, we're standing on the edge of the cliff, we're looking off into the distance. If we're standing on the edge of something, generally what I like to do is put in a bit of that, more of that foreground of that cliff edge looking out across the landscape. What do I mean? Well, let me go over here back to, where are we? Let's go over here to, no, it probably won't be on art renewal. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll put it over here in, what shall I search for? Ivan Shishkin Seascape. Boom. Let's have a look here. Images. Okay, to give you an idea, here's an image by Ivan Ivanovich Shishkin. Check this out. Looks like a little watercolor. Beautiful. Notice how he set a context here in this scene. We're actually standing on something and then out across something. So it's a little bit more, we're in it. We're in the landscape, if you see what I mean. Now, let's have another one. That's not the one I specifically had in mind. Ah, that's it. That's it. That's it there. There we go. Check that out. Nice. Ah, come on. No. Come back here. There we go. Computers. See that? There's clearly a foreground and we're looking down into the landscape. There's just a little bit of that foreground there to anchor us and to really establish that point of view and put us in the scene. So you get my point. That's kind of what I'm thinking. If we're going to paint it from the cliff top, what I wanted to do was create something where we're more down at water level. One of my favorite things to do with the seascape. So we went from that to that. Now, of course, completely different. Completely different. It's a different painting entirely, but I really just love playing with this stuff. And I'm thinking more and more. Now, you might remember a composition very similar to this. There was a painting I did called Southern Spectre. It was a big seascape of the Yallingup area in Western Australia. And here, what I'm thinking is about that foreground looking out across that tumultuous white water, all that frothy stuff spilling around the rocks, out towards a really beautiful crashing wave, just building up there. Nice glow through the wave as well. And you get layer upon layer upon layer separated by this sea mist and atmosphere as those cliffs and stacks descend into the distance. And you could push that a lot further, of course. And then, of course, you've got a sky that draws those vectors down into the scene. And we start to get this cyclic vector thing happening again and again. I enjoy it. This is the way I like to represent this subject. But again, there's many different ways of doing it. Just some of the things that I would do if I had the opportunity to deal with similar subject matter. Scott, beautiful painting, my friend. Well done. And again, thank you very much for this opportunity to critique this painting. Now, before we go, I've got some stuff to talk to you about, and I want to share some mentions from the Tish Zone. So let's get into that. But in case I forget to say it, Scott, you've been tished. All right. All right. Just wanted to take a minute to talk about some people here and share with you some of the work that I've been really enjoying on the Tish Zone. Again, apologies if the audio sounds a bit suspect, because I gotta have that. I gotta have that fan on. It is stinking hot up here today, so you will hear a little bit of a fan noise. Might be coming through some static. Sorry about that. Hopefully it's not too bad. Hopefully you can tolerate it, so I can sit here in the relative cool. Because, again, there's something about this room in particular. It just gets stinking hot. Anyway, here we got a painting by Aisha. And this is a stunning little seascape on a round canvas. We don't see too many round paintings in the Tish Zone. I actually had a couple of panels, beautiful panels, that I was going to be painting on that, oh man, I was going to get into it. I used the wrong medium, I used the wrong stuff, and it was terrible. It was an absolute disaster. Unfortunately, they didn't make it, but Aisha's inspiring me here to maybe give it another go. That'd be great. I love this painting. This is really, really beautiful. It's a sort of painting you just want to hang on the wall and keep looking at. I do have one concern, and I know this isn't a critique, but you see this ring right here? Aisha, what happened? Is that the canvas coming through the reinforced ring on the back side of this, where you've actually got a crease as you've been working on it? Or was it bought like that? Has this happened since, or is this a photographic aberration of some description? I'm a little concerned about that. Next time you get a circular canvas like this, or if you're making one yourself, I'd really recommend working on board so it's flat all the way across. If it's on a stretched canvas, make sure you got a really decent bevel on that canvas so you don't make contact with the reinforcing struts or the edge of the frame as you're working on that, because that can be the first place cracks appear as this painting gets a little bit older, but it also is visually distracting. It does take away from a really beautiful picture. But look, hey, we're not going to hold that against you. I think that's lovely. The sky, expertly well done. This is an example here. Let me tell you, this is an example here of how to get a beautifully well-handled, warm transition of colors and tones without having your sky go green. I've seen so many people that try to add yellow to a sky to warm it up next to the horizon, and it turns green on them. It's not about the yellow, it's about orange, complementary opposites. You add the orange, and as soon as it hits that blue, it goes into this really nice, beautiful, warm gray. This is a perfect example of how to do it. Love it. Well done, Aisha. Love seeing this, and thank you for uploading this and posting it to the Tish Zone. Now, I've got to give a shout out here. This is a painting by Andrea. Now, Andrea, I hope I've got the context of this right. When I downloaded it and saved it in the file, I'm pretty sure you did this in color, but then uploaded a black and white version of it, right? Is this a tonal photograph, Andrea? Either way, look, I love this painting. This is beautifully painted. I love the fur. It just communicates it so well. The dog is just, you could feel the personality coming through. It's a beautiful painting. If it's not a tonal black and white grayscale photograph, again, I can't remember the context, so you might have to help me in those comments. This is a really good example of a grisaille, of a black and white tonal painting to then color back into. Maybe that's it. Maybe I'm misremembering this. I'm sorry. I should have checked my notes before recording this. But Andrea, just wanted to give you a shout out anyway. Love your work, and I really love this painting. Well done, you. Keep it with the canine theme. I love this. I love it when people do this. And Chloe has posted this painting here, obviously showing a transition and a progression between 2016 and 2021. And I love this. This just shows such growth and such progress with your painting practice. Now, what do we see going on here? Well, when you compare them, it's really night and day. Not that 2016 effort was bad at all, not at all. But what I think I'm seeing here that I particularly appreciate is your handling of the paint your handling of that color, your choice for the background, your sense of 3 dimensions and shade, the working of the paint itself. It's just fantastic. The progression is great. So taking that 2016, the first thing that strikes me, just punches me in the face, is that green in the background. Sometimes if it's for a brief or you have to do something, specifically for a client, and that's in the brief, maybe, I don't know. That can kind of lead you into, some territory where you might not want to go. It's like, oh, you want me to use that color? You want me to match it with that? Okay, look, it's happened to me, but let's just say, for argument's sake, that was your choice. Ooh, that's a strong green. It's a really strong green. And what I try to do with a background is I try to create something that doesn't conflict with the subject. And that's why I love seeing this painting here of 2021, even though it's a gray, and some people might go, yeah, well, it's just a boring gray. There's actually some subtlety and some shifts in that gray that provide a delicacy there. There's a light tonal variation and undulation back there. When compared to the dog, it allows the dog to sit ahead of that, in front of that. It's created a 3-dimensional space. Very clever. The way that sits just in front. What ends up happening if you have such a strong color, generally it can take away and leap so much further forward of your subject, and it forms a really jarring thing. It's yeah. But I love seeing this, man. This is great, and thank you for uploading this to the Tish Zone, and keep going. May the progression continue. Awesome. Frank, I'm going to give you a warning. Here it is right now. Either you join our team or you're out. Last I checked, I put a spirit level on that thing. It is flat, okay? It's flat. It's flat. I don't know how I know. I just know. NASA's lying to us. I shouldn't say that. I'm probably going to get this video taken down. Am I kidding? Am I not kidding? I don't know. We'll never know. It's one of the mysteries, just like the shape of the Earth. Anyway, I saw this and got a kick out of it. So if anybody's wondering where the flat Earth memes came from, I think I made some passing comment in one of the first live streams, and Frank has been here from the beginning, just every now and again, keeping me on my toes, posting something like this. It's great. It's great. By the way, so it's not really an art meme, but if you're into art memes, there's some funny ones on Impasto memes. I like that page. That's cool. Georgia, I got to give a shout out here to this painting, because this is so beautiful. And I tell you what I really love about this. Beautiful handling of light. That glow and the use of tone here just causes those two kids to just leap off the surface. And it's just such a beautiful handling of light against dark, dark against light, contrast. There's a real warmth here, a real glow. Love it. Very well painted. And it's a kind of painting that, if this is of your children or, your relatives, or for a commission, it's that kind of thing. You just feel the love coming through the surface of the painting. And to me, this is kind of what it's all about. Creating an image like this, something that just makes you smile, something that you just want to keep looking at. I saw this and I thought, man, great subject matter. It's got some heart. It's got some feeling. Exceptionally well painted. Here, we got an example. This is how you do light. You save your total best for last. This is how you do light. This is how you build it into the painting, and you create a scenario where it just has impact. I love this. Georgia, well done. Thank you for uploading this to the Tish Zone. Let's give a shout out to Jackson, my man. This is a portrait that Jackson has painted. Look at this. Come on. Good night. Man, I love this painting. Now, it's a really tight technique. It's a really fiddly technique. We've got like individual hairs painted in this beard. But you know what? Because Jackson's carried it all the way across, like all the way, and he's seen it through, and there's a couple of restful areas, like the forehead, for instance, the cheek, and some of the shadowed areas. But the texture in that skin, the light, and the feeling of three-dimensionality in that beard, he's pulled it off, man. He's pulled it off. It is just so cool, so good, so well done. The color is spot on. The tone, spot on. You can really feel the presence of this gentleman on the canvas, and I just love this. So shout out to Jackson. Well done, mate. Love your work. Jackson did a painting of a wave that I gave a shout out to in a previous critique video, and just love your work, bro. So keep uploading. Don't stop. Awesome. Awesome. John, this is great. I think this is a work in progress. If it's not, apologies, but I'm assuming from that background that you're layering into this and working with it. I love the feeling of those feathers, the iridescence, the slight iridescence, the little bit of sheen off the feathers. I can really see how you're beginning to work this up in layers, and love where this is going. Don't panic when you see me paint a Brolga crane from Australia. It's a very soft gray kind of color in a very similar position, right? I'll hold it up to the screen. I'll see if I can show you, because you're going to be like, oh, Andrew totally copied me. Not that anyone... Does anyone think that here? Well, maybe. I don't know. I'll show you this. Check this out. It's pretty similar, but I haven't even shown this online yet. Where have I got it? Have I got it here? I do have it here. I suppose that's a good picture of it. I don't know if you'll see it here, because I'm holding it up to my little webcam thing, and I've got like a sunny day out there in a window, so this is probably not working at all. Hopefully you can see that. Anyway, Brolga, love it. Very similar, that kind of preening. I'm going to do two of them, so one of them superimposed in front of another. And point of fact, when it comes time to do that painting, hopefully towards the end of 2022, it feels so weird saying that. Can you believe we're here already? I cannot believe it. I didn't think we'd make it. Congratulations. But when it comes time to do this painting, I want to talk about how you use one animal to create multiple, or a herd of them, or a flock, or a herd, or whatever. You know, birds, obviously, flock, right? But, you know, I'm going to do it with other animals too. Just using one walking through the landscape, you can actually create multiples. But clever use of photographic reference. But just thought I'd give it a mention, because it's so similar to this photograph that I've took and I've been sitting on for ages and I haven't shown anybody. And so, John, yeah, love this painting. Looking forward to seeing where this goes. Julia. Shout out to Julia here. This makes me miss the South so much. This is Matuki Tuki, and I've got a video coming out very soon on the French Ridge, and this kind of took me back to that trip. I love the way this is painted. Beautiful handling of tones. Great brush work. I love that tiered depth effect from sky to mountain to foothills to foreground, midground foothills to the foreground elements of poplar and willow here on the left-hand side. Love it. There's not much I can say about it besides I just love it. I would like to know how big this is, though. I get the feeling this is 12 by 16, maybe 20 by 24. It doesn't seem too big, but really beautifully well done. Love that sky too, those wispy clouds that just draw off the top of the mountain there. Lovely. Shout out to Carrie. Now, Carrie has been giving us some progress pics of this studio space. It's a narrow little studio space, but I think something's beginning to happen on the Tish Zone, which I'm really loving, which is people are starting to upload their creative spaces and show, you know, what their studio looks like and what they're working on and various projects and stuff. But we're getting a real sense of you know, where people are creating the work that they love making. I love this. It's such a narrow little studio space, and the curtains, great idea. Cut down on that light, control your light source. Obviously, Carrie here is working under natural light. I don't see any lights above, no lamps, no nothing, but that natural light, she can control the direction that's coming in, left or right. That easel, that's something else. That is one hefty easel. Unfortunately, not an opportunity in this studio to have one of those wall easels by the looks of things, but this is a pretty good way of going about it. It looks like you just fit it in there. Oh, Carrie, love your studio space. Thanks for sharing this picture. And hey, look, let's Carrie, I think you started something. Let's keep going with this. Put up a picture on the Tish Zone of your studio space and where you're working, and maybe share something in the comment or the description of the photograph, what you love about your particular studio, maybe some of the challenges that you're having. And this is a thing I love about the Zone, right? Is that people are actually asking and calling out for help. If they, it's like, oh, if you're having this technical issue, can you give us a solution to this or that? Or is anybody else finding this or that? What bulbs do I use again for my lighting rig or what have you? The community around this is fantastic. It's not, I mean, yeah, it's a chance for you to show off your work, of course, and everybody can get around that, but also just to feed off one another and help each other, really push each other and lift each other up. There's a real spirit there, and I love that. I love the culture that's starting to form. Cult? Are we getting close to a cult yet? All right. Maybe not. Maybe stay off that one, Andrew. Always wanted to be a cult leader. I thought I'd make a good one. I really thought I'd make a good one. Maybe next time around. This is a beautiful example of tonal control. This is really, really nice. What I particularly enjoy about this breaking light. I like the name of that boat too, bro. That's cool. Look at the glow off the lamps here on the front of the ship. That's really cool. I love seeing a painting in the studio. You could see just a corner of his laptop there, or there's a couple of keys or whatever, speakers. You could see the brushes in there. Oh man, if I was there, I'd slap you so hard for storing your brushes like that. I bet all your brushes look like boomerangs now, right? But no, seriously, it's a beautiful painting. Don't take me seriously. I love this. So compositionally, what I really like about it, and I heard this said a while ago, we're going to talk about this in the composition video coming up next time, is this use of diagonal vectors. So we don't want to go out through the corners. You manage to avoid that pretty well. But what I really like is the use of the diagonal. So what I'm trying to say is you don't have an X that goes corner to corner and cutting through the center, but you have a little bit of a vector somewhere along that line, not continuous, just somewhere. And what ends up happening is you anchor the composition. And so what's he done? He's put the subject, bang, like right there at the center of those crosshairs, and it really does draw the focus and the attention right there. Now this is an example of how a centralized composition can work, because not always do you want to go for asymmetrical balance. Sure, the ship is offset to one side, but more or less that cabin area of the ship is right dead center. But it works here. It just kind of, it brings you into that moment where the ship is just kind of listing. It's just lifting up on the top of that crest of that wave, and you just feel the drama. It's like this building in the painting, some real tension there, and this adds to the movement in the painting, this sense of movement. And something else that's really clever. I overlooked this at the beginning, but I've got to say, I love the way you've actually tilted the horizon. Because you got to imagine, if we're a viewer and we're bobbing and weaving in this, the horizon's doing this, right? You ever been on a ship before? And they're like, hey, look, you feeling seasick? Just look out at the horizon. Because if you're not, you feel like and everything's just moving. And that's what I feel when I look at this painting, is that sense of energy coming through. Man, awesome stuff. Awesome stuff. Okay, few people to get through here. Mark, wicked painting. Love it, mate. And few people to get through, so we'll I don't want to rush through the rest, but I've kept you long enough. I do want to say a shout out to a few more people. Mark, another Mark with a K. Love this painting. Looks like Yosemite. Again, tonal control, use of composition. I like the way that this deer that is drinking here in the foreground is contrasted in the lightest part of that reflection. Sure, there's a couple of little compositional things we can talk about, but I really appreciate this. This is great compositional planning, light against dark, dark against light. And I've been watching Mark's progression from what he's been posting in the Tish Zone. And what I really love about this is you can start to see this growth happening in your paintings, Mark. And this is really well done. And the technique, your technique is getting better and better and better. Keep going. Crack on. Keep doing it. Loving this. Awesome. Now, Michelle, I wanted to just include this in here. Got a few images here with your comments that you've uploaded. I'll show the portrait in a second. But just wanted to read this comment out and share this with you. I'm quite new here. I've been admiring all your beautiful artworks. This is my first time posting something. I consider myself a beginner painter. Wait till you see the portrait. It's pretty cool for a beginner. Wow. I started drawing and painting last year during lockdown. I have yet to try oil painting, but I do portraits of people I love using pastels. Now, pastels, I don't get me started. I can't, no, I'm not even, I tried, and so that's why I just love this picture. You'll see it in a second. You've probably already seen it if you're on the Facebook page. I study and follow different artist teachers, and I'm hoping to be able to translate some of Andrew's portrait techniques in pastels. Awesome. Until I work up the courage and money to try oil paints. Comments and critiques, welcome, I guess. CNC, welcome. Okay. Pretty in Pink, portraiting my granddaughter, Sarah Rose, 9x12. 9x12, that's tiny. Pastels on La Carte sanded paper. Here's the portrait. Look at this. Isn't that precious? Isn't that just beautiful? There's so many things I love about this painting. Let me just tell you about a couple. First of all, the glow and the beautiful olive quality that Michelle has coming through the skin here, and that gradient and transition between the lighter skin catching that beautiful soft light maybe coming in through a window, that lighter skin, and the shaded portion towards the top of the arm. It rounds out the three-dimensionality of that forearm, but look at the handling of that face. Just beautiful. And what I love here is that subtle shadow right here on the side of the cheek. That's so cool. That's so cool. It's only slight. It's like she's against the window frame or a curtain of some description. I love it. Selective light use there. It's so good. And the pink, it's not all the same. There's gradation. There's differences in it. You can pick and pull, and some of it's really saturated. Some of it's lighter in tone. You can feel the material. It's very well done. Michelle loved this. So shout out to Michelle. Well done. Thank you for posting this, and for a beginner just painting over lockdown, fantastic. All right, shout out to Oliver here. We'll go through this one really quickly. Love the painting. Love the composition. Very well done. Like the movement in that water. The movement in here is really nice. I like that shattered effect on the surface. The use of that blue right there where the shadow is greatest, just reflecting that sky. It really communicates that movement. Only one slight criticism. Watch the value and the saturation, the chroma, if you will, of this green and yellow here in the foreground, how that relates to the green and yellow in the background. Often when we're out in the field, we won't see much of a difference, but I try to build it into my paintings to emphasize that depth. So not that it's wrong, it's totally cool, but I would play with that just a little bit. But hey, look, it's not really detracting for me in any way, but just a little thing just to maybe push that depth a bit further in the next one. But Oliver, thank you so much for posting this. Well done, mate. Post more. Now, I've got one here from Lorna Allen. Wanted to give a shout out to Lauren here. This is a beautiful painting. This really reminds me of an Isaac Levitan painting. I love the use of tones here and color and the way you've built depth into this scene. So again, this is an example of kind of what I'm talking about with my criticism of Oliver's painting. This one has kind of got that where you've taken the saturation of chroma out of the yellow, but you've also allowed those tones to fade on down, and everything from the highlight to the shadow, that's all approaching a mid-tone. But notice how the differences in that contrast get greater. Slightly brighter with those brights, ever so slightly darker with those darks as you approach the foreground. So again, we've got a two-dimensional surface here. That's all we have. So how do you create 3 dimensions within a 2-dimensional surface? Well, here's a way of going about it. Love it. Beverly, working on my granddaughter's Sweet 16 portrait. She had just woken up, but I thought it was such a cute photo. Oh, cool. Something is wrong, but I can't figure it out. Her hair is bleached, very blonde white. Maybe that's the problem. I first of all, great painting. I particularly like the use of the teal and blue and kind of green notes that you've got in the background. Great use of that color because it brings the warmth by that contrast of chroma. It brings the warmth through the face. You need that little bit of flush in the cheek to bring the life into it. Really like this painting. Like it a lot. The only thing I would do is just go back and look at the tones again. You might not have enough of a difference between your darks and your lights. So by going back into that shadow portion of the blonde hair, maybe work back into that shadow and just darken it down a little bit more. You'd be surprised how dark it could be. Maybe this might be an opportunity to use one of those little color picker tools on a gray card, hole punch in the middle, just get a little circular spot and hold that over your photographic reference and try and gauge that next to like just the neutral gray or a white or a black. I might make one of those cards if I'm confusing you, but it'll show you what I mean. But a little color picker tool could really help because often it's difficult to see something in context. We know that's bleached white hair, right? Or blonde hair. And it's very light, as you're saying here in your description. But sometimes we can afford to make it a little bit darker than what we think it is. So paint what we see, not what we know. And this might be a case of trying to work out those two things with each other. But well done, Beverly. Great painting. Rowan. Shout out to my bro here, Rowan, and a big thanks once again to Rowan for all of the intros that he does in terms of those voiceovers. So if you don't like the introduction or the little intro sting that we do to these, whether it's a Q&A or the critique, send this guy an angry message. I don't want to know. Send it to him. It's his fault. It's his words. Well, actually, no. Well, I wrote it, but he just voiced it. But still, his fault. Anyway, love this painting. Love the use of warmth in that sky. And I love how that reflection is showing off slabs of paint here in the foreground that really communicate that depth. Great painting here. Current work in progress on the easel, 18 by 24. This was a request from my wife to hang by our Christmas tree. About 5 hours total on this one so far. Everything's basically blocked in and modeled. Just got to put some detail on, but I'd like it to dry first. I never thought I would say this. People used to say this to me all the time when I was first starting out. They're like, oh, don't touch it. Don't go any further. It drives me mental when people do that. It's like, don't go any further. It's like, do you have any idea what I'm about to do? No. Okay, get out. They'll look at the block and go, oh, that's cool. But I'm going to tell you, Ron, don't touch it. I love this painting just as it is. Don't go any further. This is great. Keep it. 18 by 24 little study. Hey, man, hang loose. This is great. Love it. Don't touch it. Mark Seeley. Great painting. Love this. Putting the finishing touches on a 48 by 72 inch landscape entitled The Land of Enchantment. Surely you mean centimeters. Surely, not inches. Bro, inches? 48 by 72. Land of Enchantment. I wanted to combine the elements of all the sites I've been trekking in the San Juans of northern New Mexico over the last 30 years. Chimney Rock cliffs, dramatic sky, sun that breaks, and of course elk. Not sure if it needs anything else, so critique is welcome. You see a lot of UFOs out in that part of the world, don't you? We put a few of those on. I love this painting. So from your description there, you've pretty much taken these elements and you've put them together to form this scene. If so, that's epic, bro. Well done, Mark. Love this. Yeah, really love this. Yeah. And I like the bull elk too. This little bugling elk here in the foreground. That's cool too. Love it. Epic. Now, this is a really cool little, I appreciated seeing this so much. Somebody who's doing their homework when it comes to planning their compositions. We need to do more of this. I mean, come on. We've got to draw, we've got to sketch, we've got to design, we've got to prepare, and then paint. So Susan here. Hi, folks. This is my first post with the group. Welcome, Susan. Well done, too. This was a piece of work I did for a monthly equine challenge, where the brief was to show your work via stages and improvements. From the first drawing I made, some adjustments, and there are, I'm sure, probably lots of things still wrong that could be improved upon. Still very much learning. I like it. It's got a real fresh vibe to it. That bottom right, you know, where it all comes together and you've got the color in there. It's got a real Munnings vibe, an Alfred Munnings vibe, the freedom and sketchiness there, and that's really nice. Let me zoom in on this so you probably can't see it too well, but there you go. I love that little pencil sketch there, the little ink or watercolor, a tonal study, and then finally color. Well done, Susan. Thanks for posting. Welcome to the group. Welcome to Patreon. Love it. Now, I've gone through that one. Gone through that. Now, shout out to Tet. And thank you, Tet, for posting this. I love this portrait. I particularly enjoyed the way you handled the face here and the use of color to communicate those freckles, the nice work in here in the cheeks. Real three-dimensionality to this. Real three-dimensionality. Fantastic. There's just a couple of things that I will say. And again, this might just be Andrew's preference when it comes to painting portraits. But there's something that kind of gives you away here, Tet, which is the circular highlight in the eyeballs. It looks like you might have been using a circular light to illuminate the portrait here, and the shading would suggest that's so. So if that's the case, next one that you do, because I'd love to see what you can do with this, try getting those balancing lights, so something natural coming through a window balanced out with something more direct coming from the opposite side to maybe make more of a three-dimensional form. But I gotta say, credit where credit's due, it still looks really beautiful, realistic, really well painted, and three-dimensional despite the use of the flat light. So generally what happens with things like makeup lights or those portrait lights, like for instance, like a ring light. I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but I got one there I use for filming, right? Not now because I've got this window in front of me, but you know, I use it, especially with the filming and the vlogging and all that stuff. You use it to kind of get rid of all the shadows. I use it to make sure I just look fantastic on camera. For a portrait, though, I want to pick up every mass, shape, and form, you know. Especially, you know, the painting that comes to mind is that portrait I did of Wayne. You remember the guy with the beard? So it was all about that glow from the side, and then that really sharp, crisp highlight down the other side. I think it was one of the latest portrait videos I put out on YouTube as well. But you'll remember it from the portrait workshop. But look, it's not a criticism. Tet, that's fantastic painting. Great portrait. Thank you for posting this. Would love to see what you think, though, about that opposing light angle and balancing it out and creating some three-dimensional form there. Anyway, love it. Cool. And last but not least, I got to give a shout out to my brother here, Valeriu, or Valeru? Can I call you Val? Dude, Texan. English is my second language. So I'm terrible with my pronunciations, but so I apologize if I'm butchering your name. But hey, bro, look, shout out. This is awesome. What Val does are these beautiful renditions of old master paintings. So I just want to give a shout out here. Please help. Hello, guys. Just wondering if anyone on the Tish Zone is from Sydney. I've been hesitating for a while on where to proceed with my with my further challenge. I've decided to follow Andrew's advice and go for this beautiful piece of work done by Sir Edward John Poynter. I already have nice reference image, but unfortunately found no close-up references to understand his manner and brushstrokes, and I'd like to study this masterpiece deeper. just copying overall colors and composition. So I need your help. Val needs our help, okay? If anyone is based in Sydney, right? So if you're in Sydney right now, this is you. If anyone's based in Sydney, we'll be fortunate enough to visit the Art Gallery New South Wales in Sydney and take multiple close-up photos from different angles and details. I'd be enormously grateful. Anyway, anybody in Aussie, in New South Wales, hey, help Val out and get this guy some reference of that painting. Now, I have seen this original, and I didn't have the presence of mind to take a photograph of it when I was there many, many moons ago. But I love this painting, and it's just epic. Now, there's a whole school here of painters from the 19th century that had these themes coming through, where they were like, there was also a massive school called Orientalism, where there were, paintings of the Middle East that were just beautifully well painted. I love this genre. Lawrence Alma Tadema is one of them. John William Waterhouse is another one. Pointer here is another one. So this isn't Val's painting, but this is a reference image of what he wants to do. But get on the zone, check out his work, because I love it. And I love this idea of doing replicas and renditions of old masters' paintings. Now, this is not to say, hey, it's a copy, he's knocking off the old masters. This is a thing. And it's actually a really good business idea as well. If you can pull it off, and Val can pull it off, he can absolutely pull it off, you can actually sell this work as replicas, because people want to live with the greats, the old masters. But who's going to pay the millions for the original, right? This is where an artist, where the original or the source material in capable hands, you can create a replica. This is where somebody like Val comes in and can create a really competent painting, a beautifully well painted painting reminiscent of those old masters. But I love this, and this has actually got me thinking a lot. There's two copies I want to do, two master copies. One of them is Albert Bierstadt. It's a painting called An Old Mill. And at some point, hopefully I get to that. And there's another one. I'd love to do The Lady of Shalott by John William Waterhouse, and even a painting by Joaquin Sorolla. There's actually so many that I want to do, but I'm probably going to start with An Old Mill by Albert Bierstadt. I love this painting. This is the Queen of Sheba meeting Solomon. Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. So, there we go. That's the end of critique video number 8. Thanks for hanging out with me up until this point. Huge shout out to everybody uploading your work to the Tish Zone. If you're new here, if you haven't seen one of these before, hey, go you. You stuck with it all the way to the end. Thanks for suffering through my stupid sense of humor. But I've just got to say, I couldn't do this without you. And thank you so much for your support. I'm looking forward to bringing more videos your way in 2022. I've got a lot of content on the way. Thank you for your patience with me. It's been a little bit difficult to upload over December and getting things into gear here for January, but I've got a lot coming your way. It will be weekly, and I've got a few extras that I'm going to be throwing your way as well as some references. So I uploaded a reference file a little while ago. I'm going to try and get another one of those reference files together early next week, so that'll be coming your way. Give us a little bit of an indication, though. Either hit me up with a message through Patreon, or just make a post below this video. If there's a particular type of reference that you're after, maybe I could push those to the head of the queue. I've got some Kimberley stuff I want to share with you, more New Zealand stuff, some seascape stuff, some wave stuff, but also maybe even some Italian stuff, some Venice stuff. Eventually, we'll be getting into Southwest American stuff, Grand Canyon stuff, Zion stuff. So there's all kinds that I got there, even some animals too, birds and wildlife, etc. So that'll be coming your way. But let me know, and if there's something that you're like, oh, I gotta have skies, then I'll make sure they end up in the file. And I'll be sharing those with you on a bit more of a regular basis. If you want to be part of the Tish Zone, all you got to do is go to the Facebook page. I'm going to put the link on the screen right here. So go to the Tish Zone, sign up for that. There's 2 things you got to do. You remember? Okay, number 1, you got to give me your name that you signed up to Patreon with. That way I can verify you. And number 2, click that little box that says you agree to the group rules. If you can do those two things, you're in. It'd be a pleasure to have your company there. It'd be a pleasure to have you part of the conversation. And thank you to everybody who's on that page. Thanks guys so much for what you're bringing to this. There's really a community vibe building. Eventually, when I give the word, we're going to become a cult. Okay, there'll be a secret handshake, there'll be a uniform, all sorts, and even maybe a theme song that only we know. All right, no, not really, but thank you. Thank you. I can't stop. I won't stop. I can't stop. I don't know how to not be silly. Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for being part of this. So I'll see you again next week. I've got a special time lapse to share with you that Liam has just finished. It looks awesome. It's of a couple of little paintings that I did, but what I'm saying is Liam's cut is awesome. The paintings, hopefully you get something out of them. But the editing's great, and the music's pretty chill like that too. So that's coming your way next week. I don't think there's anything else I have to mention besides love you. God bless you. And I will see you again in the next video. Until then, happy painting. We'll see you then. Bye now.